Dude, Seth Gross, thank you so much for coming on. We are episode, I don't know, we're probably like 5 or 6 at this point, and Athletor Podcast. So, you know, one of the things that I have not probably done a good enough job of doing is explaining what Joel and I are trying to accomplish with this podcast. There's a ton of wrestling podcasts out there, and I love all of them. They're wonderful. But one of the things that really interests me, and Joel, I'm going to speak for you for just a second, but it really interests both of us, is the processes that go into the success, or maybe the lack of success, that someone or a group of people have had. And to me, one of the people that just immediately sparked my interest when we started talking about this stuff was Seth Gross. You, I think, have a little bit of a different process towards success than most people. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm excited because I love talking about this stuff. But I definitely think I got a different approach. And for me, every level from middle school, high school, college, right? I've never been that guy to pop on the scene and be, unstoppable. It's always been just a slow climbing journey and really buying into that process of getting better and knowing that, right, I'm never going to plateau, right? I'm not going to be stagnant. I'm going to keep building. And that absolutely, is something I'd agree with. I think um, that my process, I think it's unique, and I think I've been able to, over a long period of time, just continue to develop and get better year over year. And I think that some guys struggle with that, right? They hit their peak at in high school, their senior year, or after college, and then it's a slow downhill thing where I feel like I've done a good job of adapting, and as my body changes and I get older, and right, always finding a new way to do things, and know that, right, I don't have all the answers, and that I'm always gonna keep trying to find the next best thing if there is something. And yeah, so I love talking about the process of getting to where people are. So
Yeah, you're an interesting individual to me. Truly interesting. You talk about the progress up and to the right, up and to the right, up and to the right. Do you ever find yourself recognizing a plateau? And then when you do, how do you kind of bust yourself into that more up and
yeah,
to the right progress?
absolutely, and I think there's a lot of things that go with when you are plateauing. Figure out, you're probably, if you are plateauing, you're probably not showing up every day with this right energy, the positive mindset. But right, it's finding a way to, whether some guys, maybe it's taking some time. I think that it's great to take some time off when you need it. And when I say take time off, that doesn't mean go eat whatever you want, drink whatever you want, and be away from the sport, right? I just mean, maybe take a week off, 2 weeks off the mat, and only run and do some strength training, but stepping away. And then when you get back on the mat, you can kind of come at it from a different angle. And I know that's always been a big thing for me, is when I'm really feeling like I'm stuck and like, man, I haven't gotten better this month, or I feel like I'm struggling with the same things. Sometimes just stepping away and just not thinking about it for a little bit, and then all of a sudden you get back on the mat and it's like, all right, well, maybe if I do this a little different now, you just get a different perspective. And it's helped me a lot being a coach too, of how I go about breaking down wrestling. I think that that's been an absolute game changer for me, because I was a super stubborn kid in college, and I was like, oh, I don't need to watch film. I'm gonna go beat this dude regardless. Like, I don't care. He can try whatever he wants. Like, he's not gonna beat me. And as I've gotten older, I realized that, like, hey, I gave up a lot of first period takedowns in my college career, a lot of first period takedowns. And I guarantee if I would have sat down and watched some film, I could have stopped, because 90% of the time it was the guy's best move. And it's like, hey, if you would have known this guy's best move, you would have stopped that. But yeah, definitely. I think that taking some time away, maybe just watching film. I love watching the best guys in the world. One of the guys I watch a lot is Sidikoff. I love watching his stuff. I love watching Guayoff, Megomedov, all those guys, and just it inspires me watching them, seeing the technical things that they do. From they're hitting the simplest arm drags on the everybody in the world. Just simple
Now
things
you're talking about Nurmagomedov. He's
like
got the nastiest arm drag I've ever seen in my life.
yeah, and then even Ray Higuchi, right? The guy I wrestled this summer. I love watching his stuff and picking out because he also has a nasty drag. It's like, why? How are these guys able to hit those things? And that's what I like to do when I'm taking time off, right? I really watch those guys, and I get kind of re-inspired, and then I'll go in, and it'll be kind of more of a creative time in the room. To hey, I'm gonna just try new things and see if I can get them down and add it to what I do, and that seems to kind of spark the going on the right path again if I'm ever kind of in that plateau range.
Okay, I want to switch to your coaching career now, just quickly, and I'm gonna go back to you as an athlete soon. But while it's on my head, as you're coaching now, you obviously have this growth mindset, this progress mindset. How many? And you guys are getting some of the best recruits in the country to come to Madison. Whether they wind up there on a full-term basis or not is irrelevant to me. How many percentage-wise young athletes, high school wrestlers, how many of them have that growth mindset already in high school? And how many of them have to be taught that growth mindset when they get to campus?
Man, that's a great question. And we talk about this a lot, but it's like, I think it's pretty rare. I don't think a lot of kids have that. A lot of kids just do what they're told, and that's what's kind of gotten to them. And not a lot of them are actually, thinking for themselves, tweaking things for themselves, right? It's what coach told them to do. And I think the special individuals are the ones that, right, they go into the match and they go into their training and they're making tweaks themselves to what they do. And you don't see that in a lot of high schoolers. I'd say, 5% maybe. That's probably being
That's
generous.
pretty generous, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's a rare thing, and I think along with that, it's almost like the ability to coach yourself a little bit. I think coaches are great for motivators, right? If you don't know something, to bounce ideas, to work technically with. But when you're able to coach yourself, I guarantee, you talk to the very best guys in the world that they're able to do that. They're coaching themselves every second in a match, right? They're sitting there and a guy hits something on them, and immediately in their head, they're coaching themselves, making an adjustment and moving. And I think that's a hard thing to not a lot of people have that. And with that being said, it's also a very hard thing to teach somebody to have that doesn't have that. So I'd say, yeah, like 5% maybe.
When did that switch kind of flip for you? Because I know that you mentioned that when you were in college, you just, I don't need to watch film, and now looking back on that, you're like, oh, I probably should have watched a little film. When did that kind of flip happen for you?
Honestly, it was just going through film with my college guys is what kind of flipped the switch for me. It was seeing like, all right, well, this guy couldn't get one of our guys stop this guy's very best move just because he knew it was coming, and then he dominated. It's when guys are getting upsets on guys they probably shouldn't beat, or you get a game plan and it works, and you're like, man, that makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't I do that? And right, I started doing it over probably last year when I made the world team. I started kind of making adjustments and watching a whole lot more film and started game planning for guys a little more. And right, I think that you got to find that sweet spot. You can't overthink it and be threatened by, what a guy has, but at the same time, just being aware and, add small things into your training that might, stop up. All right, Ray Higuchi has a arm drag, right? Maybe I have a guy, hey, during this workout, just every once in a while, throw some arm drags in there. And right, it's subtle where I'm not overthinking like, oh, the arm drag, because then I think if you just go in there and drill straight arm drag defense all day, I think that's where you're kind of then you start worrying about it and it can go downhill. So I think it's really finding that sweet spot is how do I subtly throw what this opponent does into my daily weekly training. So
was that we can stick on Higuchi if you want to, but when you're talking about defending their number one, is it more important to develop a feel for defending their number one, or the actual nuts and bolts and technique of like, hey, how do I defend that drag? How do I defend that single leg? Is it more important that you know how to do it or that you just kind of feel?
I'd say for a lot. I mean, I think it differs per person. Like I'm pretty good at it. I feel it now. I know what I'm looking for. I know what he's looking for. I know as soon as his hands go in here, this is where you got to be careful. So I think having a feel for it, it's like Austin DeSanto is a great example. Like I could train and know the defense to what he's doing all day until I feel that. Nothing's the same, right? Nothing's the same as that, and that's why it's hard to replicate and really overtrain the defense to what a guy does, because you break it down to you think perfect, but there's all of a sudden a little tiny detail that Ray Higuchi hits that I didn't practice when I was doing it, and it doesn't feel the same, and now boom, he gets it on me, right? It's little things like that. So I think getting a feel, and that's the importance of in-match adjustments, right? Where okay, he hit it early in the match, I felt it, now I know exactly where his hand's trying to go, where he's trying to move me, all his motions, where he's stepping when he's going to his drag. Things like that. So I think feel's the biggest thing. I think technique's important. Obviously, you need to know how to defend and counter and this and that. But until you get the actual feel of it, you can't really make that technique work.
How do you make? I'm sorry, Joel. I got a million. I'm sorry. I'm stepping all over you. I apologize. I don't get to talk to Seth very often, and it's really important to me, not to anyone else. I'm sorry. I'm such a shit. Here's the thing, okay? How do you teach feel? It has been my life, like I don't want to say the bane of my existence. It's one of the most difficult things I've ever tried to do is teach kids in high school and below feel.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I talk a lot to a lot of people about this, and like when I'm teaching or trying to change a guy, one of my other pet peeves, along with I think is a feel, is you teach kids new moves, you work on it, it looks amazing, they're hitting it beautiful, and then they go into a match, and what happens? They go right back to the two moves they've been doing since they were in 8th grade. And so that's where, I try to teach them this kind of thing I tell them is, all right, every single day you go in, you go in, you got a toolbox, and you got a single leg, a double leg, a high crotch, all this, and you bring this into practice with you every single day. And for whatever reason, you always grab the tool that you're comfortable with when you go in there, You go in, I grab my double leg, and boom, that's what I'm hitting all day, Sometimes you got to leave tools at home, I got to leave them at home completely, Today, all I'm grabbing is my high crotch, So I'm grabbing that out of the toolbox. Everything else stays at home. And that's the only move I'm going to hit today. I'm only going to focus on that. Like a big thing for me when I got to college is I was a right leg lead and I switched completely to a left leg lead. And it was very uncomfortable. And I told myself, hey, I'm only going left leg lead and left-handed shots today. I can't score on anything else. And my partner would, beat me or get close to beating me at a good practice. Like, dang, you didn't feel too good today. But little did they know I was wrestling left-handed and doing, I wasn't allowing myself to do all this other things. So I think being able to basically throw out, hey, I cannot use any move but maybe two things. And now you have to force yourself to find a feel to make a certain move work. And I know that's helped me tremendously is, hey, today you're only going to get to an underhook and you're going to score from there. That's the only thing you can score on today. If you don't get there, this guy's going to beat you. You're going to lose the practice today. So if I go in there and I only have an underhook, guess what? I'm going to figure out how to get to an underhook one way or another. And so I think being able to limit yourself in that way is very important. And then once you limit yourself for so long, now you're going to feel more comfortable to actually go out there in a match and use it. But like I said, when things get hard, if I'm not forcing myself to use this, I'll go in there and I'll try for an underhook, probably fail twice and be like, yeah, it doesn't work. But if I tell myself that's all I can do, well, now I got to figure it out. So that's one thing I like to do. And I try to push onto these guys. And it's a hard concept because guys are stubborn in practice. They want to win every go. They want to, it's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. And I think that ego has a lot to do with that, and if you can leave your ego at the door, go in the room with an open mind and really focus on that, I think that you're on the path to, that growth mindset.
Yeah. you're obviously, getting to compete at the highest level in the world, but also simultaneously you're coaching at a very high level. How would you say that being a coach has impacted how you compete?
It's been big for me. Like I said, that one big switch was right. A lot more film watching now, but overall, it's just give me a little bit of a different perspective and different look at training because I'm trying to figure out how I can get the very most out of these guys. And while I'm trying to figure that out, it's like, hey, maybe the training you haven't been doing your whole life, maybe you need to switch it up too. So it's like I'm starting to find like I trained so much different over the past year than I've ever trained before that. And that's because of coaching, because I realized like, hey, this isn't working for these guys, and that's what I've been doing forever. Maybe I got the right result, but I've been doing it with the wrong process. And I think people are so set on, right, if they get the right result, they think they did it the right way. And that's not true, right? Somebody could be doing everything wrong and still get the result. And that could be the best or worst thing ever for them because now they think, hey, this is the right way of doing it, right? I'd rather figure out what the right process is and lose every time because I know eventually if I figure out the perfect process, I'm going to keep getting better. And so I think that's been a big mindset for me and talking to these guys on the team and working with them is like, let's keep figuring out what the best way to train is, the best way to eat, the best way to recover. Let's keep every single day. If we can continue to get 1% better in every single of those areas and make changes, right, we're gonna be on the path to where we want to be.
What does that look like for you? What is the perfect process?
And right, and that's one of my favorite quotes. I don't know if it's even a quote, but confident humility is kind of a big thing that I'm confident in reaching my goals, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know what the process is going to look like. Right, I know where I'm going to be. I know I'm going to reach my goals, but I don't know where I'm going or how I'm going to get there. And I think that's just admitting that, right, even right now, I think I'm pretty close to, finding that perfect process, but I'm always open to learn what's better. And like one big thing for me that I discovered last year, I read the really good book. It's called Win by Dr. James DiNicolantonio. And it's literally a book of how you can be the very best elite athlete you can be. And he breaks down everything from hydration to cutting weight to how you should work out, how you should train, what liquids, right? Like the water we drink, you can change a little thing in that, electrolytes. Like he breaks down every little bit and piece of how to be the best athlete you can be. And one thing I really got from that book is like, I'd say in college, I was just a guy. I'd show up in the room and I would just spar. I'd go 90% and just spar for an hour and a half, and I'd try things and figure things out. And that's a good way to learn technique things, try new things, grow in that way. But at the end of the day, that wasn't getting me everything I needed, right? You need to do high interval training. You need to do zone 2 training. You need to do max interval training. There's 5 or 6 different types of training. If you're not hitting every single one of those, you're not going to be at your very best when you step out there for a 6-minute match. And so that's been a big thing that I make sure every single week that I hit each zone of training at least once or twice a week. And that has helped me a ton to have a huge amount of energy every time I step on the mat because I can go to my max, right? I can go in intervals and go out of bounds. It's like going out of bounds, coming back, and you still have that burst and adding that stuff to my training where I think in the past where that's why I'd get taken down early is because I was just always firing at probably 90%. I could go 90% for 2 hours, but right, you need to be able to jump to that next gear. So finding these new, right, there's all sorts of different zones that you got to hit when you train was big for me. And then, like I said, I think it's just every area, my nutrition, what I'm putting in as far as liquids and adjusting those as I go has been huge.
You got anything? I want to before we move forward because I do want to talk a little bit more about you as a world level athlete. Joel, what do you got for him?
No, go ahead. I think that you keep running here.
Okay, so how many people thought you were going to beat Dayton in Gallagher, Iowa? How many people thought you were going to beat Dayton Fix to make the world team?
Maybe 3 or 4. Maybe. My dad was there, so I think he might have.
Fair enough.
Couple, but yeah, very, very, very few. Maybe 3.
Yeah. What's that like though, man?
Oh,
You
I
didn't
get
you didn't
I get
seem
absolutely
phased by
excited
it
for
at all.
that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I love playing the role of an underdog. I always, even if I'm not the underdog, I like to put myself in that situation. And so when I get the opportunity, you know, it's like be pretty dang cool if I went into his arena with his home crowd in a place he's never lost before and did it. And that's kind of how I always frame it. I love being the underdog. And like I said, I like putting myself in that position. I think it gets you up, it gets you excited. And all my life, I just love doing things that people don't think you can. And right, I think that, you know, not a lot of people might get scared, but right, who gets an opportunity that I got that day, right? He's a returning silver medalist in his backyard. Like nobody gets a chance like that. And I was like, man, this is a cool thing that I could go and do right now. And for me, my faith plays a huge role in it. And I always tell myself it'd be pretty cool to show how big my God is. And that's an important thing for me. And but it's always, that's how I always love to frame it, is, you know, it'd be pretty dang cool. You know, not a lot of people get a chance to even do something like this.
Man. And that's really the only way you can look at it and be prosperous in
Yeah.
that. It's really the only way you can.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
like, the I'm gonna is that's a slippery slope to get down, because then there's like this, if I don't, then
Yeah.
it's negative, right?
Absolutely.
But the process of how cool would it be if,
Yeah.
you know, and that motivates me, because I'm motivated by the hope of gaining something, not by the fear of losing something,
Yeah.
generally in my life. And so if you can impart that on your athletes in the best way you can, how do you impart that on your athletes? How do
Yeah.
you
And
get them to say, man, wouldn't it be cool if
and that's,
if you beat Yanni, Austin? Wouldn't it be cool?
yeah,
You know?
exactly. And I think, right, and that's a big thing that I think some coaches struggle with, because a lot of times they throw these big expectations on guys, like, you have a chance to go do this, you could go and do that, instead of, you know, it'd be pretty cool if you go win a national title this year, you know. And I forget what it was. Which football team won the national title this year?
Georgia.
Georgia. And I saw a quote from one of their guys that their coach had them convinced, like, that they were underdogs. Everybody thinks you're going to go 4-10 this year. I saw a quote like that. And clearly he's showing his guys, like, everybody doubts you. You know, it'd be pretty cool if we go do this now. And I think it's just talking to your guys like that and convincing them, and that there's no pressure, right? There's no expectations when you're the underdog. And that's why I think it's so powerful, right? When you're, hey, you could go, right? You know, I think you can win nationals. I think, right, you start putting pressure on guys, then it's a different mindset from them. But when they feel like they're the underdog but know they're capable of it, right? That's where you really get that kind of confidence, that you know, I'm gonna go prove them wrong, and I'm gonna go do this. And so I think that, yeah, it's how you talk to them, and how you build it up. You don't want to put pressure and, you know, say, you're expected. You got to go do this. You know, you could be a national champ, and that's right. Just be put them as the underdog and let them know that hey, it'd be pretty cool if you get this done. And that's how I like to approach it with a lot of our guys. And I think that, like I said, the big thing that people struggle with is they have too many expectations, and then all of a sudden, when you have these expectations, you start thinking of what could happen if it went wrong and you don't win, and right, and that starts hurting your mental. So I think that just staying in a good place and staying like that is the perfect spot to be.
Hey, one of the things that I'm curious about, you know, your career has been filled with jumps, right? High school level, college level, international level. You know, being that underdog and making that next big step. Which jump in your career do you think that you're most proud of so far?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, I want to say right now, I think this last year has been big for me, because I think that I really matured and made a lot of outside of wrestling things that improved my wrestling. I think that high school, college, I just continued to develop as a wrestler, and that was able to continue to make me reach the next spot. But I think this last year I've really developed as far as mental, as far as what I'm doing, as far as conditioning, is how I'm training. I think that this last year I really started from ground zero and revamped how I go about my training. And like I said, I think out of high school, right? I think in high school I did everything wrong and still got the right result. In college I did a little more right, and I found the results because I was willing to go. I trained, I would say, harder than anybody in the country in college. But with that being said, I didn't care about recovery. I didn't care about, right. I thought I was invincible, and I end up with a broken back, and having to have back surgery. And I've dropped right. I don't think I'm invincible anymore. I don't think that anything. I think that I don't know the best process, and every single day is the challenge to find what that looks like. And I think that that's something that I didn't have before this last year. And so I think that's something I'm proud of, is just, hey, I'm going to keep getting better, and I'm going to keep finding the best way to do it. And when new information comes and something better comes along, I'm willing to hear that out. I think a lot of people get stubborn, like, this is how I've trained the last 5 years, and so this is how I got to train. Why? Why do you got to keep training like that? You got some results, but now you're not getting them. So why? Maybe you got to switch it up. And it's like a lot of people think they got to go back to what got them there, where no, what got you there got you to a certain point, but now it's not getting you any further. And so that's something that I think over this last year that I've really, really matured as far as, right, I'm gonna keep changing and finding the tweaks that I need to continue to grow.
What's the biggest difference? That, like you said, was it the recovery? Was it strength training? Because let's be completely honest, right? A powerful Seth Gross is a very dangerous son of a gun. Very, like, you've always had that kind of wiry strength, but what I'm noticing is just a little more pop. So I wonder if that's a result of a different strength training regimen. What is the biggest difference in your training over the last year or so?
Yeah, and that's something that I've really been diving into with my strength and conditioning out here. Billy Breeder is absolutely amazing, and right, it's cookie cutter. It's not a cookie cutter lifting thing. He's got it tailored to the movements. Like, I'm like, hey, I want to get more explosive in this shot position. I want to work on pulling on guys, pulling on guys, pulling on guys. And so everything I do in the weight room now is tailored to what I'm going to be doing on the mat, right? There's obviously a few lifts as far as that are full body stuff and hypertrophy stuff that I do. But overall, the main bulk is like, hey, let's get in these wrestling positions and let's get strong there. And let's extend our range of motion there. And that's been a big thing I've been doing for probably 18 months now that I really, really enjoy. And right before pre that, it was a lot of Olympic lifts that wore on my body, and it was a lot of just almost going in there and just, right, it was more, I'm just going to get through this lift. And now it's like I get excited to go in there because I know that what I'm doing is directly going into my wrestling, right? Getting down into your stance, and then, right, you're stretching a little more, you're getting here and you're getting powerful through that position. And so there's a lot of functional pattern stuff. There's a lot of explosive stuff, mobility stuff. And now I'm hitting a large variety of that versus, right, just going in there, trying to get through a lift as fast as I can and getting out. It's like, I really enjoy getting in there, working on that. So that's been a huge change. Outside of that, my diet changed a lot this last year. Actually, 6 months prior to me making the world team, I got an MRI and found out like I had a big labral tear in my right hip. And so that was something that I was kind of up in the air, like, should I wrestle? Should I get surgery? What should I do here? And that's when I really turned into, how can I fix my diet to get every bit of inflammation out of my body? And so I made huge changes with my nutrition, and I felt like they really got a lot of inflammation, got a lot of the pain away. And to this day, I don't feel any issues with my hip, which is pretty crazy. But I learned just how powerful, if you have the right nutrition and have that dialed in, how much your body can heal itself and how much better you can feel. I think so many people get used to thinking that feeling crappy is normal.
Yeah.
right? Where that's not normal.
My pain is at a 7 all the time. Well,
Yeah,
kind of get used to that. It's not good.
exactly. Yeah, you fall into this thing and you get used to it, and now, hey, that's my normal. I'm a 7. I sit at 7 out of 10, where it's like, no, let's figure out how we can get you to feel 0 out of 10 pain. Like you should never have, right? And that was a big thing for me too. And like even with my back, that hurt me for a while, and figuring out the right diet, the right mobility training, and all that really worked together to make my body just feel the best it's felt in a really long time.
What type of nutritional program are you doing now?
And I've kind of, like I said, right, I've never set on something. I started off doing actually a full carnivore diet.
Mhm.
And so it was all, I literally ate steak, ground beef, eggs, and a little bit of dairy. And that's all I ate for 4 months. And so that was it. And that helped my body feel a lot better as far as the inflammation and the pain. But where I lacked a little bit is, I think when I went into real long workouts or things like that, towards the end, I felt great in the beginning. Towards the end, I'd kind of go down a little bit. So now I've kind of adapted it to where I add in. It's more of an animal-based diet where I add in a lot more fruits, and I do have carbs now because, right, carbs can power you through those workouts and make sure you have that fast energy going on. So I almost used, once I got to Worlds, carbs was almost, I was still on a low carb diet, but then I'd really ramp up the carbs when I was going out there to wrestle. And all of a sudden I have this energy and strength that I haven't had in my training. And so it felt like I was on, had a superpower all of a sudden come match time. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now, is kind of on an animal based diet and then low carb, but then I'll kind of ramp it up on, if I have 2 workouts a day, I'll have a lot more carbs. If I'm going into competition, I'll ramp up the carbs, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I get with my nutritionist and we make tweaks to what I'm doing. And, some days, one big thing that I noticed is how sore I felt on day 2 of competition. And so we think that's because having zero, low carb and then ramping it up fast, right, can cause kind of that soreness, lactic acid buildup. So, now we're going to test out kind of building carbs up throughout the week instead of ramping up super fast. So, like I said, it's kind of fun. It's just like a little experiment out here to, and we do that. We'll probably do that in a couple weeks here and just test it out here and do matches for a practice and see how it feels that next day. But it's fun, and it's figuring out, what's the best for me. And I think the big thing is, right, what I'm doing might not be the best for what somebody else is doing. Like, I think I'm in a unique situation with my hips and my, have had back surgery where this works really well for me. And I think everybody's got to find what it is for them.
Yeah. No, obviously, right? Like there's no one size fits all in this sport at all, right? And I think you're more of an example of that, right? I think going into college, you weren't this, freak athlete dynamo. You were tipping people over. When you made the junior team, you did it on the strength of like defensive, like just belly wizard.
Yeah.
You were gnarly with it. Don't get me wrong, but man, excuse me for 1 second. I'm sorry, I'm the jerk. But now you're you can see it. You've got pop on those leg attacks.
Yeah.
You can go up, you can pop your hips in up top. You said superpower. I've kind of looked at it like, oh man, this dude's just adding skill sets and plugging them into a very dangerous style already. What does that feel like to be like, oh, dude, you've got Seth Gross is we knew you were a problem, coming out of college. But now it's like, oh, you're a problem for the world. Forget about just making the team now, right? Like, you're a big problem. Like, that kid, like, I really want Russia to be at the World Championships.
Oh, yeah.
Like, more than I want air at some points. Like, and I want to see Seth Gross against Abascadze Magomedov in the worst way. So tell me what it's like to be hitting your stride as a young man, soon father to be, when everyone kind of thought you probably were, I don't know if people thought you were done in college, but they thought maybe you had plateaued.
Yeah. And right, that like I said, that goes back into being an underdog and loving every second of it. And but it's been cool. You're spot on with as far as like I just always love adding things. You could wrestle me literally a week ago, and I wrestled different this week than I did last week. And that's like I said, right? You keep adding what you're doing, and you keep tweaking, and you keep finding a way. And at the end of the day, you drowned out. I love the negative messages, and I throw positivity back. I remember slow feet out of high school was this guy's got the slowest feet. He'll never succeed in college. Then in college, this guy lets everybody in his legs. There's no way that translates to the senior level. And as soon as I made the world team, it's like, well, that sucks for Team USA. That too bad Fix wasn't there, but it's like, slowly and I ended up fifth, and I'm happy that I was able to do what I did, but I know what I'm capable of, and I know I was in the match in the semis to win. And it's just you got to find that happy medium of never being proud of what you've done, but never happy with knowing that you can do better. And so I'm kind of that, like, I thoroughly enjoyed. I know nobody thought that I'd be where I was last year, and now I'm ready to show that, hey, that wasn't a one-off thing. Like I'm here to stay, and I'm here to keep getting better, and I'm gonna build off that. And now that means I got to go out there and I got to dominate. These trials. I got to go back through the whole circuit this year. I got to go through the U.S. Open, make Final X, and wrestle through that. I don't get to sit out because I got fifth, and then after that, it's, hey, I'm gonna go up to 65 kilos and get it done at 65 kilos. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm excited for the challenge. I always love, very, very competitive person. And I like when the odds are stacked against me. So,
Bro, I am so happy. Like, it makes my heart happy to hear you say 65, not 57.
oh, yo.
Well,
Yo.
I know it makes your stomach happy for sure. Right? I remember your first time down at 57. And by the way, your first time down at 57, you weighed in like a half a kilo under. Do you remember that?
I weighed in light. It was weird. It was the craziest thing because I was like plateaued. I was like, didn't think I was going to make it. And by some miracle, I slept off like 2 pounds the night before. And I was like, well, I made weight.
I remember talking to, I think it was Reader. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Reader. And it was in New York City, right? Like we were at Farrell or something like that.
Bill Farrell, yeah.
Yeah. And I like the first person as I walked in early, right? It was before weigh-ins. And I just look at Chris. I think, no, it was Chris. And I go, is he close? Is he close? And he's like, he's under. I'm like, no. And like, I freaked out a little bit because, like, I am a fan of the sport. And I want to make sure that the next generation of this sport does it all the right way. Yeah. It's not always been done the right way in this sport. A lot of what we have done in this sport has kind of been kicked under the rug, so to speak. Yeah. But it makes go ahead. I'm
sorry. And no, I was gonna say, and that's like I did everything right to make 57 kilos. I was disciplined, did it the right way, but it was still the wrong decision. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is, hey, I made the weight, I feel pretty good, but long term, your happiness, your mental health, how you're training, like it hurts all that. I don't care if you make weight and even have success, that in the long term it's not going to pay off. And that's what I realized through all that. Like I wrestled well at the Bill Farrell. I destroyed everyone at that one, and then I had to hold it down for a whole year, and it was like it was miserable. I literally feel like there's a gap in my memory, like how bad that year was. And it was like I could only eat this food and I could only do this. And I had everything was about losing weight. And it's just like at the end of the day, you could do it perfect, your weight cut, and it's still not the right thing to do because you're losing a lot of ground in so many other areas.
Did you come to that realization yourself, or did you have to have somebody kick you in the head for it?
No, I realized that one. I realized it about halfway through, and then I was like, "Well, I got to get through this Olympic cycle." At this point. Like it's a little late now. I'm freaking got sucked in face and weigh 130. I was like, never again. No, I made that decision right after the Olympic trials. I was like, it wasn't worth it. I don't think, even if I would have won the Olympic trials, I don't think it would have been worth it. And and right? I think that a lot of people suffer. I know a lot of my high school buddies. We had a really good team at Apple Valley High School. We were #1 in the country, and multiple guys ended up not wrestling in college on the next level just because they cut too much weight in high school, and they didn't, it just wasn't conducive to, the longevity in the sport.
Yeah, that's tough to explain, right? It's tough to explain to, now that I'm dealing with higher level high school athletes on a more consistent basis, it's interesting to watch them make what or have a good idea are probably the wrong decisions when it comes to weight cutting. Watching them suffer like this just to make a team, right? Because you say a lot of these guys at Apple Valley you were ranked #1 in the country at one point. Well, you say that they all cut weight, and then you go, well, don't cut weight. Well, okay, well then don't make the team.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That's really tough. That's not easy, dude. That's a tough. Like these kids have been doing this. This is what they've been doing their whole lives, and to watch them. Some of these kids are like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to wrestle JV? Okay. I mean, I guess fine, but it's tough, right? So it's really interesting to me to see some of these guys come to the realization. Like we have a kid that would, he made 106 3 or 4 times this year, had a tremendous amount of success. But he's just like, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. I'm done. And he's 120 something pounds right now. Mm-hmm. And he's happy and getting better. Yeah. Doesn't that seem like more conducive to keep on wrestling?
Yep. And that's funny you say that too. My best friend in high school, so he was a 3-time state champ, right at the weight below me every single year. He was a junior, I was a senior. Year after graduating, he was done. He didn't wrestle his senior year because of the weight cutting. And it was like you said, it's hard because it's like, all right, well, what I'm gonna sit out this year, and that's hard to say. Maybe that for the future of your career, that might be the best thing. With all that being said, I do think in high school there is a lack of nutrition discipline that makes that even harder. Like I remember how much of a clown I was in high school. I'd be make weight and smashing Mountain Dews, and I remember this one was crazy. I was making 103 my freshman year, and I was sucking down a lot for that. And I remember I literally got down to weight, and I was like, it was 24 hours before. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna have a Mountain Dew and some candy, and literally did that. And then I went and ran again. I was like, what on earth am I doing here? Looking back, it's like, what is that all about? And it's like, I think how advanced science is now, you should know what weight you should be at, right? And it's pretty cool, right? I jump on a DEXA scan and it can tell you, hey, you have 124 pounds of lean muscle, right? And if you have that much muscle, you're not gonna 125 is out of the picture. You're literally gonna have to lose everything to make 125. 133, you'd have to get down to 6%. Right. And now you can start thinking more from that aspect of, hey, what does my diet need to look like? What do I need to do as far as muscle? And do I need to lose a little muscle? Do I need to do this? And you can break it down where your body's perfect for whatever weight class, you see fit. And, and that's maybe 33 is even too hard. So maybe we got to put on 3 pounds of lean muscle and you're a 41 pounder. Mm-hmm. And I think that's super important. But like I said, with that being said, if you're not disciplined, and it's not a year-round thing for your nutrition, right? It's still gonna suck for you.
It's gonna be the worst. Yeah,
it's gonna be terrible.
That's gonna come from it, right?
Exactly. So you see a kid that goes up the weight, and all of a sudden they're still dying to make that weight, and you're like, well, it's not weight cut. It is weight cut, and they're doing it completely wrong. Yeah. Maybe they were, and that's the other side of it that I think that a lot of people just don't do it right. And for me, I don't even like the term weight cutting anymore. I didn't cut any weight to make weight for Worlds this year. I walked around at 139. I was on weight after every workout, and I just stayed dialed in, and I stayed right where I needed to be, and I just stayed there. And I stayed disciplined, and I ate a normal, right? The day before I had a big old steak and eggs, and that's what I had. And then I started dialing in the next day after weigh-ins. I put my carbs in my body, and right, it should be 2 sweats max from making weight at all times.
2 sweats.
Right.
That's a great
Mm-hmm.
bar. That's a great bar for these kids to aspire to, I think.
Yeah.
2 sweats away max.
Yeah, especially when you're within a month or 2 of competitions, right? I get, hey, there's a time in the summer when you're not competing that, hey, maybe I'm putting on muscle or doing this or that, or I'm changing my body. But when you're anywhere in season, it's got to be 2 sweats, right? Like that's one thing. I should be able to make weight in 24 hours at all times if I need to, and that's 2 workouts, right? And that's how I always like to do it, especially when I'm getting dialed in. It's like, man, I should touch down to weight a lot. Right? I don't need to stay there, right? There's no time that you need to hold your weight at where you're competing, but right, it's not bad to touch down there right after your workout and build back up, because that's exactly what you're going to be doing when you compete, right? You're going to touch your weight for 10 minutes and then you're back up to 4, 5, 6 pounds over, and that's it. So it's like that's kind of was the big thing for me. And it's like, come Worlds time, I see all these guys that I look bigger than struggling to make 61 kilos. And I'm like, man, you guys are doing it wrong. You guys are doing it wrong. And that's another kind of mental edge thing. You dialed in on your nutrition and doing it right. Right. That's another advantage when you step on the mat.
One do you, Joel, are you fixed? Are you ready to rock?
Yeah. It seems like a common theme that you're kind of hitting on here is kind of evolution in your nutrition, in your training, in your approach to wrestling. When do you think that you had this kind of I guess breakthrough mentally on kind of how you look at the sport and how you approach kind of everything holistically?
I think that, right, I think it, like I said, over this last year has been big, and that was just, sometimes you got to have a hard conversation with yourself, and figure out, like, where do I want to be, and what am I willing to sacrifice? And I know my goal has always been to be in a world and Olympic champion. I had to look at myself in the mirror and be like, are you doing every little thing you can, not in the wrestling room, in every area of your life? And I know 2 years ago when I lost at the trials, I had that exact conversation with myself, and I was like, no, not even close. There's so many areas. And it was like, I know my career's coming closer and closer to an end, right? It might be 4, it might be 3, it could be 2 years, it could be 1. I don't know how much time I have left, but I know I'm getting closer to the end. And so I looked at myself and I said, hey, commit now until your career's over to do every single thing in your power to get where you want to be. Right. Then I'm going to live with the results. If I know that I did everything spiritually, nutritionally, mentally, in the wrestling room, strength training, if I did everything I could in those areas and I lose, I'm going to walk off with smiling in my head high. Like, I'm good with that. But what I couldn't live with is if I knew there was areas I could improve in. If I knew I wasn't eating the right way, if I knew I wasn't getting the sleep I needed, and then I lost, and then I can look back and say, hey, you were this close, but you decided not to do that. I can't, that's something would eat me away forever. So it's like, I made the decision that, hey, here on out, you're going to do everything in your power to get where you want to be. And that was the conversation, right? And I think, right, it's just looking yourself I like to look myself in the mirror and have that tough conversation. But some people just are afraid to have that. They want to avoid it their whole life, act like it's not there, and then they have an excuse if they don't reach their goals, right? The hard part about doing everything right is that you could still lose. That's the hard thing, and that's why some people don't do it, right? They'd rather not do everything right so they can look back and say, hey, it's because of this, but maybe I could have. I'd rather give it my best shot and see where it takes me.
Oh, that's awesome. We're gonna end right there, because that just that one hit me. All right, that's why people don't do it. That's why people don't give every aspect of themselves to it, because
they're afraid they won't reach that goal.
Yeah, because there's no guarantee. There's still a strong likelihood that you can lose a wrestling match. That shit happens. No, that's all right. Exactly. Man, thank you so much for coming on. That just motivated the holy heck out of me. I am really, really excited. Thank you, Seth.
Yeah. Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on. I love talking about this stuff and the process, and I think it's cool what you guys are doing. So I appreciate it.
Awesome, man. All right. Thank you, brother. I'll talk to you real soon. All right.
Yep. Talk to you soon.